How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brown Logan, and today we got to talk about this fake news story over my left-hand shoulder. Oh yeah, this story is fake. Well, it may be real, but it's very, very misleading. You see the headline, 100% of Ballou High School's graduating senior class accepted into college. Now we're going to watch this video. This is from earlier this year in the summertime, June 16th, 2017. We're going to watch this video and see what they say. And then we're going to switch to an article which reveals the truth. So let's watch this right quick so we see what's going on.
Last fall, Ballou High School made history with every senior sending in at least one application to college. And now we're learning how those applications worked out. Hugh McCrae with the breakdown as we put the spotlight on education.
Feel good story, but not what it seems. Not at all. Everybody's out there.
There have been dozens
dancing.
of graduations at Ballou High over the years.
Good time.
But this one is historic.
I'm actually the first one to actually graduate high school and attend college.
You're looking at three members of the record-setting 2017 graduating class. For the first time in the school's history, 100% of graduating seniors received at least one college acceptance letter.
Now, before we even continue, just because you get a letter that says you have been accepted into the college does not mean you're going to be able to actually go. Because if you get accepted into a very expensive school, how are you going to get into the school? You know, financial aid will only cover so much. So if you're coming from Southeast, like these kids are in DC, how are you going to be able to get into a very expensive school out of state somewhere?
Randy got 14. He's on his way to Penn State.
I never seen myself going to a big university, but when I realized how many opportunities I had, I wanted to push forward towards it.
I mean, I'm not trying to rag on the boy, but come on. Do you hear how he sounds? Do you hear him? Does it sound like somebody that should be going to Penn State? Really, he should be going to a tech school or something like that, but I'll talk about that much later.
Trayvon's getting a full ride to Bethune-Cookman College in Florida.
It's a win-win situation. Not only am I going to college, but it's in Florida. So it's like learning in paradise.
Quite a change from Southeast Washington, where Ballou High is located. The school's been synonymous with crime and poor test scores. Principal Dr. Utunde Reeves changed the culture here.
For me.
Here come the fake tears. I'm sorry. I see this a lot with these teachers. You know, you got the crying voice with no actual crying tears.
This was the dream for them. Like, my entire career has been about getting Black children to the next level.
In March, the staff motivated them all to apply for college. Now the graduating rate is also the highest it's been in years at 86% compared to 57% last year.
Seeing them feel proud and confident that college is for them, it means a lot.
Ballou isn't the same Ballou it used to be anymore. Ballou is college bound.
And the celebrations here are far from over. An additional 20 students are expected to graduate come August once summer school is over. From Ballou High School, I'm Hugh McCrae, ABC 7 News.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Summer school, huh? Okie dokie. So you go from 57% graduating to like 86% graduating in 1 year. And there's nothing wrong with that. No red flags arise. There is, you know, nobody asks a question about what's going on. You got the same neighborhood, the same kind of kids. All of a sudden you jump 30%. Something was wrong with that in 1 year. I could see if it was over a period of years, but in 1 year, something is amiss. Something is awry. And that leads us to the next article here. Here is the actual story. This is from WAMU in conjunction with NPR. It says, what really happened at Ballou, the DC high school where every senior got into college, well, got accepted into college. I'm not sure if they all got into, like, you know, if they're actually going, if they're actually there right now. But here's the, you know, front of Ballou, nice little letters or whatever. The subhead here says DCPS has touted Ballou's graduation rate as a success story, but a WAMU NPR investigation has revealed that many students who graduated should have been held back. And we're going to see what's going on with that. I'm going to get into this article, and it's going to just break everything down in a very succinct way, which is kind of surprising from NPR doing a story like this, exposing how these Black schools sometimes are fraudulent. Like, they have hoaxes when they're talking about the graduation rates and, you know, the scores, SAT scores sometimes are fraudulent as well. But we'll talk about that in a little while. The article reads, Brian Butcher, a history teacher at Ballou High School, sat in the bleachers of the school's brand new football field last June watching 164 seniors receive diplomas. It was a clear, warm night, and he was surrounded by screaming family and friends snapping photos and cheering. So, sounds good so far. You know, you got all the kids graduating, families happy, kids are happy. It's all good, having a grand old time. We continue. It was a triumphant moment for the students. For the first time, every Ballou graduate applied and was accepted into college. The school is located in one of DC's poorest neighborhoods, Southeast or Southeast. You'll see that, like, if you watch some videos about these guys, like I said, interview and talk about Southeast. That's an old school song, DC Go-Go. I don't want to get into all the music in DC and all of that. That's for a different video. Let's get back to this article here. The school is located in one of DC's poorest neighborhoods. It has struggled academically for years and has a chronically low graduation rate. In 2016, the school graduated 57% of its seniors, according to data from DC Public Schools, DCPS, slightly up from 51% a year before. For months after June's commencement, the school received national media attention, including from NPR, celebrating its achievement. But all the excitement and accomplishment couldn't shake one question from Butcher's mind. How did all those students graduate from high school? You saw kids walking across the stage who, they're nice young people, but they don't deserve to be walking across the stage, Butcher said. Butcher's comments were not unwarranted. An investigation by WAMU and NPR has found that Ballou High School's administration graduated dozens of students despite high rates of unexcused absences. WAMU and NPR reviewed hundreds of pages of Ballou's attendance records, class rosters, and emails after a DCPS employee shared the private documents. The documents showed that half of the graduates missed more than 3 months of school last year unexcused. Let's dive into that right quick. Half of the graduates missed more than 3 months of school, 90 days. When I was going to school, I'm not that old. I'm 33 years old. When I was in high school, if you missed 10 days, you automatically failed. Whatever the class was, it was an instant fail. If you had 10 unexcused absences, it was a wrap. You were done. 90 days, I mean, you might as well just say you're not in school anymore. That's dropout at that point. You're not going to school at that point. So how do you graduate, let alone pass? How do you graduate from high school when you miss like almost half the school year or like a third of the school year? It doesn't make any sense. When I was going to school, we would take pride in having perfect attendance. You would get like little certificates and stuff for it. Missing school was like a serious thing. I know when I missed school one time, I didn't miss school. What happens? I missed the bus. I was late for the bus, but I knew I was like probably like 16 at the time. So I knew how to get on a regular bus. So what I did was I caught the actual HRT, Hampton Roads Transit, to school, and then I walked from the bus stop to school. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna just stay home and skip school like that. That's not an option. So I don't understand the culture of being able to not go to school and still graduate, but I digress. Let's get back to the article. According to DCPS policy, if a student misses a class 30 times, he should fail that course. 30 times? Really? Man, that's a very, very low bar. I mean, for me, it was 10. And really, I rarely miss school days. I miss school days for like getting my wisdom teeth pulled, death in the family, something like that. Not because, I mean, I don't understand how you miss that many days in school. Unexcused at that. Research shows that missing 10% of school, about 2 days per month, can negatively affect test scores, reduce academic growth, and increase the chances a student will drop out. Yes. Because if you're missing that much time, you're not learning. You're not getting enough information. Like every day is valuable. Every day is precious. You missing tests, you missing quizzes, you missing, the sequential learning aspect of school that you need to have. You're missing all of that when you don't go to school for, 30, 45, 90 days. Now here's a chart that is really just the evidence that you need. Is all of it right here. You can see it on the screen before you. The majority of Ballou's 2017 graduating class missed more than 6 weeks of school. The subhead says students in Ballou High School 2017 graduating class grouped by number of unexcused absences. Each dot represents one student. Now you can see it here. That's 0 days right there, 23 students. And then maybe that's, from 0 to like 30. So in between this, you've missed 30 days or less right here. That's only 23 students. 30 days or more, from 30 to 60, you got 55 students. From 60 to 90, you got 53 students. From 90 to 120, you got 23 students. You have one person who missed 150 days. How do you miss that many days in school? How do you miss that many days? Like, you're talking months and months. You're not coming to school. You've essentially dropped out. If you're missing that many days, then why even act like you're going to come to school at all? Just stay home or just go straight to the penitentiary. That's where you're going to be anyway. And if that's going on, then how are they graduating? It doesn't make any sense. The article continues. When many of these students did attend school, they struggle academically. You don't say. Of course, they're going to struggle academically because they're not going to school. If you're not going to school, you're not getting educated. So then when you do come to school, you don't know what's going on. You have no idea. You're out of the loop. You've missed all the tests, all the quizzes, all the education. You've missed the group projects, everything you've missed. So you don't know what's going on. You have no ability to be able to function properly. And by the way, I saw another article somewhere. I'll probably put that on the screen before you in post-production. But it says that 98% of Ballou's graduates, I use that term very lightly, graduates, 98% of them need remedial courses. 98%. It was only like 2 students that did not need remedial courses. So how are they getting into college? Maybe that's part of the whole affirmative action thing. I was talking about that on my live show yesterday on ABL Live. And I was saying how blacks have an advantage over whites when it comes to college admission. We can get 230 points lower in the SAT score than the Asian, and we'll get in beyond them because we get a preferential treatment. We get a bump above them by 230 points in the SAT score. Most of these kids probably can't read or write, let alone do any kind of math beyond 2 + 2. But yet, because of the racial set aside, because of the racial preferences, they're able to get into college when they should not be. It's doing them a disservice because once they get to college, they're going to struggle terribly. I think it was Thomas Sowell or Walter Williams who was talking about it. And they were saying that they were teaching class, I think it was at MIT, and the black students were struggling heavily and the other students weren't. The black students think that it's because of racism. They think, oh, I'm doing bad because you racist against me because I'm black, all this, that, and the third. The reality is that they were being mismatched. Matter of fact, there's a book about this, and I'll place a link for that in the description box below. They had been mismatched because their SAT scores showed that they should go to a less intense program at a good college still, but in a less intense program. These kids who could barely read and write need to be going to night school to learn how to read, learn how to write. And rather than going to an expensive school out of state, they should be going to some kind of vocational programs to learn how to work on cars or to be a brick mason or something like that. Why would you go to college when you can't even read now? You're going to waste money for what? Quote, I've never seen kids in the 12th grade that couldn't read and write, said Butcher, who has more than 2 decades of teaching experience in low-performing schools from New York City to Florida. But he saw students like that at Ballou, and it wasn't just 1 or 2. Another internal email obtained by WAMU and NPR from April shows that 2 months before graduation, only 57 students were on track to graduate, with dozens of students missing graduation requirements, community service requirements, or failing classes needed to graduate. In June, 164 students received diplomas. How did that happen? It doesn't make any sense. Like, just 2 months before graduation, only about 1/4 of the students, 1/3 of the students that were going to graduate had the required, tools to be able to do so. So how did they just jump up so exponentially like that? How did that happen? It's some book cooking going on. It's very simple. Quote, it was smoke and mirrors. That's what it was, Butcher said. A pressure to pass students. WAMU and NPR talked to nearly a dozen current and recent Ballou teachers, as well as 4 recent graduates who told the very same story. Teachers felt pressure from administration to pass chronically absent students, and students knew the school administration would do as much as possible to get them to graduation. It's oppressive to the kids because you're giving them a false sense of success, said a current Ballou teacher who spoke on the condition of anonymity to protect her job. Another current Ballou teacher who also spoke on the condition of anonymity said to not prepare them is not ethical. I agree. I was talking about that earlier, because when they get out there in the world and they realize they can't read or write and they can't compete in the job market, and then when they go to college, oh my goodness, especially if they're paying money out their own pocket from a loan or something like that, they're going to be toast, totally toast. They're going to drop out of college and then end up with a little bit of debt on their back. And then what are they going to do when they come back to DC, or when they stay in their college town? What are they going to do? Morgan Williams, who taught health and PE at Ballou last year, says the lack of expectations set students up for future failure. Yes, what they always say, the soft bigotry of low expectations. Quote, if I knew I could skip the whole semester and still pass, why would I try? Williams said, they're not prepared to succeed. Very, very good. Very simple. And that's her right there, Morgan Williams, who taught health and PE at Ballou. Shout out to her for being brave to show her name and face. Williams taught PE and health for 2 years at Ballou, which is a graduation requirement. She says her students were often chronically absent, but the gym was always full. Students skipping other classes would congregate there, she says, and her requests for help from administration and behavioral staff to manage those students were often ignored. Williams and other teachers interviewed for this story say they often had students on their rosters they barely knew because the students almost never attended class. Near the end of a term, Williams said students would appear asking me for makeup work like worksheets or a project. She will refuse, saying that there are policies, and if students didn't meet the attendance policy, there's nothing she could do to help them. Then she says an administrator will ask how she could help students pass. So basically what they're doing is, rather than having them be in the class for the whole time, actually learning the material, taking the tests, taking the quizzes, doing the homework, they want to come like in the last few days of the class and then be like, hey, can I get a worksheet? Can I get a project? To basically just do that little quick, easy, busy work that bypasses all the actual education. And they probably go online to find any answers if they don't know the answers to a test or something that they're going to be given. They'll do that to say, okay, I passed. Okay, but they're not learning anything. At one point, while she was out on maternity leave, Williams says she received a call from a school official asking her to change a grade for a student she had previously failed. They're going to go to jail. Somebody's going to jail. I remember the thing that happened in Atlanta. Remember that? Where they were changing test scores and everybody went to jail. That might happen here. And I mean, you know what? I think I said back then that maybe they shouldn't go to jail, but they need to, because they're doing these kids a disservice by being unethical and setting them up for failure. Then they talking about, oh, they got accepted into college. Okay, so what? When they go to college, they're going to realize they can't read or write. Then what are they going to do? You set them up for failure just because you want to have the school look good. You want to have everything appear to be all roses and sunshine when it's not. Quote, they said, just give him a D, because they were trying to get him out of there and they knew he wouldn't do the makeup packet. Unreal. Williams said she tried to push back, but she often had 20 to 30 kids in one class. Repeatedly having the same conversation about dozens of students was exhausting. The school also required extensive improvement plans if teachers did fail students, which was an additional burden for a lot of already strained teachers. Many teachers interviewed said they were also encouraged to follow another policy: give absent or struggling students a 50% on assignments they missed or didn't complete instead of a 0. So you could just not show up and still get half the credit. Okay. The argument was if the student tried to make up the work they missed or failed, it would likely be impossible to pass with a 0 on the books. Teachers say that even if students earn less than 50% on an assignment, 50% is still the lowest grade a student can receive. Wow. During the last summer of senior year, some seniors weren't on track to graduate or place in an accelerated version of classes they were already failing. Those classes, known as credit recovery, were held for a few weeks after school. DCPS policy says students should only take credit recovery once they receive a final failing grade for a course. At Ballou, however, students who were on track to fail were placed in these classes before they should have been allowed. Teachers say that this was done to graduate kids. On paper, these students were taking the same class twice, sometimes with 2 different teachers. Unreal. Credit recovery is increasingly used to prevent students from dropping out, but critics argue that credit recovery courses rarely have the same educational value as an original course and are often less rigorous, of course, because if you're doing something that may take half the school year and a condensed amount of time, how can it be as rigorous as the original thing? You need that amount of time, the original amount of time, to get the coursework into the students, make them understand it, to test them, to quiz it, to do homework, projects, all of that. Student participation, working with each other, group projects, all of that has to be done within the confines of a certain amount of time. But once you just ignore all of that, how are you going to be able to get the same effect? You're not going to be able to. It's just to look good on paper to say these kids are graduating, but they're not graduating with anything of any value. You're just passing them through the system. You might as well just say, just drop out and we'll give you a diploma. It's the equivalent. It's the same thing. They're not learning anything. They might as well just not go to school beyond the 9th grade. According to class rosters, 13% of Ballou graduates were enrolled in the same class twice during the last term before graduation. Often, teachers were not alerted that their students were taking credit recovery, and many said that they didn't realize what was happening until they saw students they flunked graduate. If teachers push back against these practices, they say the administration retaliated against them by giving them poor teacher evaluations. Last year, DCPS put school administrators entirely in control of teacher evaluation, including classroom observations, instead of involving a third party. Many teachers said that they believe this change gives too much power to administrators. A low evaluation rating 2 years in a row is grounds for dismissal. Just one bad rating can make it tough to find another job. See, they got them kind of hostage. I was trying to see if I could find that piece in there, because they are kind of trapped. If they are pushing back and doing the right thing, then they get bad scores on their record. And if they try to actually quit after that, you say, you know what, I'm done. I'm tossing. I'm throwing in the towel and finish. They try to go somewhere else, but now they got a black mark on their record that could prevent them from going forward. There may be some lawsuits from this. There may be some lawsuits. There may be some actual criminal action, because now you're getting into the territory of, your sabotage and stuff like that. So yeah, keep an eye on this story. Teachers said that if they questioned the administration, they were painted as haters. Haters, really? Is that what we're going to say? Haters in the professional world? Okay. Who didn't care about the students. If they don't like you, they'll just let you go, said Monica Brokenborough, who taught music at Ballou last year. Wow. Former Ballou music teacher Monica Brokenborough says the administration encouraged teachers to pass underprepared students. She also served as a teachers union building representative. The building representative is responsible for handling teacher grievances and ensuring the school follows the DCPS teacher contract, among other duties. Last year, 26 grievances were filed by the teachers at Ballou. Said one teacher who asked for anonymity to protect her job. Either you want your professional career on paper to look like you don't know what you're doing, or you just skate by, play by the game. Playing by the game can have financial benefits. If an evaluation score is high enough to receive the highly effective status, teachers and administrators can receive $15,000 to $30,000 in bonuses. This is why I say that that principal who was crying in the earlier video, I was like, no, ain't no crying. I don't see no tears. It's fake. She is not necessarily worried about these so-called, these black kids, all of that. She's looking at money. That's my opinion about what she was expressing in that piece. She wants to appear to be so virtuous, so kind, and so thoughtful of the kids' well-being, but in reality, it's about her own personal pocket. But I digress. DC Public Schools wouldn't disclose which teacher received bonuses, but teachers interviewed said the possibility of such a large bonus increases the pressure on teachers to improve student numbers. Butcher, Brokenborough, and Williams no longer work at Ballou. They received low teacher evaluations after the 2016-2017 school year ended and were let go for various reasons. They believe they were unfairly targeted and have filed complaints through the local teachers union. Yes, please file those complaints, get a high-powered lawyer or something, and sue and get paid. Butcher and Williams found new teaching jobs outside D.C. Brokenborough is waiting to resolve her grievance with DCPS. That's Brian Butcher right there. And the subhead says, who now teaches outside DC, question how so many Ballou students were qualified to graduate. Now, my thing is, how is the white liberal establishment going to spin this? This is a story from NPR. Okay, this is NPR doing this. And you have black teachers. All of them are black. All of them. You have one black male and two black females who were pictured in this story who gave their name in their photograph. So you got black teachers complaining about a black school doing black kids dirty. And you have a white liberal organization putting the whole thing out there. So how are the liberals going to explain this away? Who is responsible? Ballou principal Yetunde Reeves refused to be interviewed for this story. Of course, that was a woman earlier doing the fake crying. But DC Public Schools Chancellor Antoine Wilson and James Spence, the DCPS Chief of Secondary Schools, did. Quote, it is expected that our students will be here every day, Spence said, but we also know that students learn material in lots of different ways. So we started to recognize that students can have mastered material even if they're not sitting in a physical space. Well, if that's the case, then why is it that so many kids can't read or write? We heard the kids earlier. We heard them earlier. We saw them speak. These kids can barely talk, let alone, I suppose, read, write, or do any kind of math beyond 2 + 2. So when you're saying they can learn in different ways by not being in school, sitting in the actual space, why are they so illiterate? Why is it that 98% of your graduating class needs remedial courses? It does not make sense, but I'm going to move on. At the same time, DCPS is publicly pushing the importance of daily attendance with a citywide initiative called Everyday Counts. City leaders have made improving attendance a priority, strengthening its reporting policies to improve accuracy. To be considered in school, students have to be there 80% of the day. If they are absent, parents have 5 days to submit proof of an excused absence, such as a doctor's note. Wilson says schools can't ignore what's going on in the lives of students. Many students are managing effects of trauma, family responsibilities, whatever. I ain't trying to hear it. Excuses. A job and sometimes all of the above. That can make it extra hard to show up to school every day. I had a job in high school. I had a job when I was in senior year. I still went to all my classes. I didn't miss a day. It's just a bunch of lies. Federal data released in October found that 47% of DCPS students have experienced some kind of traumatic event. Okay, whatever. Cry me a river. So how do all those kids miss so many days of school, apply to college, and still graduate? When pressed on this question, Chancellor Wilson and Deputy Spence abruptly ended the interview. Wow. I would love to see video of that. I would love to see actual footage of that happening. After WAMU and NPR reached out to DC Mayor's office for comment, the Chancellor and Spence made themselves available for another interview. Okay. Ultimately, they stand behind the school's decision to graduate those students despite missing so much school. When it comes to DCPS's graduating policy system, leaders are quick to differentiate between a student who is absent from a particular class and a student who misses the full day. It is possible for a student to have 30 days when they are absent from school, but that doesn't constitute 30 days of absences from the course, Spence said. Still, she said, the high absenteeism is unacceptable and there's room for growth. Like I said, 30 days is too much anyway. When I was in school, 10 days was a wrap. If you missed 10 days of a class, it was a done deal. And people didn't miss so much time in school. We'd be like, you might see kids miss 3 days, 4 days at most. And usually it was for a good reason. Somebody's grandma died, it got sick, something like that. Wisdom teeth removal like I did. But beyond that, you didn't just miss school. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a mall. Like, you could almost walk to the mall from the school. And people would be in there during school. But sometimes you'd be scared to do it. You wouldn't want to do that because you wouldn't want to get caught in there by an officer or something like that. Like, we really took school seriously. But these kids obviously don't. And it appears to come from the top down, because when you got people avoid interviews and stuff like that and talking about, oh, it's okay, and making excuses and giving them this low bar, 30 days you can miss school and still be okay. That's not something that we ever had. We had high expectations. We did not have the soft bigotry of low expectations. I'm not reading the rest of this, but you already pretty much know what it is. At the end of the day, I'm seeing a lot of the same things. I'm seeing people talking about all these excuses, talking about the kids, they got out of school problems. The kids, they got life issues. They got jobs. They can't come to school. But look, if they can't come to school, then whose fault is that? That's not anybody else's fault other than whoever is responsible for taking care of them and themselves. That's not anybody else's fault. And if you graduate these kids, what's the point of doing it other than to look good? Okay? If they can't come to school, then just drop out. Just drop out. It's better for a kid to drop out rather than pretend to go to school. You understand what I'm saying? Because if they're pretending to go to school, what's going to happen is when they graduate, they're not going to be able to read, write, do anything. They're going to be behind the eight ball. But they may think that they're okay because it took the credit recovery, they filled out worksheets or whatever, and they fine. Then they try to go to college and they're going to get a rude awakening. End up in debt and not being able to they don't have any skills when they graduate. They're going to be out there committing the crime and the violence. It's going to be a vicious cycle. All because you got teachers that want to impress the media themselves and also to get paid. We saw a little nugget in there talking about, if you get a good review, if you do good by your students, if you get them the passing grades and all that, you get a little bit of kickback, $15,000, $30,000. That's hard to pass up for somebody living in Washington, D.C., probably one of the top 5 expensive places in the United States. It's a costly place to live, and the teacher salary may not pay that much. So you want that extra money. You want to be able to go to Miami and have a vacation or go to the Bahamas or something like that, go to Mexico and just get away from all the violence in D.C. So you want to, it's an incentive to do the wrong thing, the ethically wrong thing by these kids. I don't blame teachers 100% of the time because at the end of the day, the kids are not making it any better. Like in Southeast, you're going to have a lot of violence, a lot of danger. Some of these kids end up getting shot and killed during the school year. So at a certain point, it's on the community to make sure that these kids are coming to school the correct way. They're not causing violence. They're not wreaking havoc, and they're not engaging in violence on the campus. Okay, so really, it's just a amalgamation of different people that have come together to make this whole thing just bad overall, totally bad. But we know now that the whole 100% graduation rate is really a scam. Because if you graduate somebody that can't read, what's the point? Other than to look good. And what's the point of going to college when you can't read? To take remedial courses, to go to college and then take high school all over again and not be able to pass? You probably have not begun to get education the entire time in Washington, D.C. Because if you get to high school and you can't read or write, then what were you doing in elementary school, middle school? What were you doing? Just having fun? Going to the gym and hanging out in there playing basketball? I'm done with this article. There's a lot more here. Look at this, man. I come to school when I want to. That right there is a soft bigotry of low expectations. This is allowed to happen. The first thing is having kids miss 30 days of school, and that's fine. 30 days is way too much. And then if they miss that, which is already a low bar, they say, okay, they can miss 120 days and still graduate. It's unreal. It's really unreal. But what do you think? Do you think that this is an unethical thing that has been done here? Do you think that this program should be disbanded immediately? I do. I think that this high school needs to actually be shut down. If they have kids that can't read or write, all of the kids can't read or write, what's the point in having the school? Close the school. People talking about, they're closing schools in Chicago. That's a bad thing. Well, if the schools are not graduating kids that can read or write, then what's the point of the school being there? Most of these kids would do better if they went to a vocational school. Just skip the reading and the writing and all of that, because once you get to be in high school, you can't read. You're not going to learn magically how to read for the most part. I'm not going to say all the time, hashtag not all, but once you get to 9th grade and you can't read, you're not going to learn how to read in high school. What you need at that point is to do something that's very simple that anybody can do. Learn how to work with your hands. Go to a vocational program. If you're a woman, go to home ec or learn how to cook, be a nurse or something like that. The math and the reading and arithmetic, leave it alone. That should have been accomplished at an earlier age. they know, when I say they, I mean those who make the rules, those who really do research, understand what they're talking about. They know that if you get to third grade and you can't read or write or any kind of basic math, you're finished. You're done. And the only thing I've seen people that go to the penitentiary that can't read, what they do when they come home is like manual labor. So just do that and move on with your life. But whatever your comments are about the situation, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.